Hello there, and welcome to the first episode of the COYGIG Pod, the new home of everything Women's Super League and women's football on Off the Ball. I'm Kathleen McNamee, and alongside me each week will be former Ireland international and current Peamount United player Karen Duggan. Here we are, Karen, week one. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. We have a lot to talk about. It's been busy on the domestic scene, but also we have a lot to catch up on in the WSL. So I'm excited to get going on our first pod.
I know there's a lot of exciting people to come that we're going to interview. There's lots of debates we're going to have about teams of the week. As to what you can expect from us here at the COYGIG Pod, every Tuesday morning we'll be waiting in your podcast feeds to bring you the latest on the Women's Super Leagues, the highs, the lows of the weekend gone, how the women's national team players fared, and any more football analysis and debate that we can pack in. We'll also have our team of the week provided by Off the Ball's Emma Carroll, who'll be joining us a little later on with her first inaugural. We're going with team of the season first, just because this is our first week of doing it, but from then on it'll be every single week. And we'll also feature an interview with some of Ireland's key figures in the world of women's football. We're very excited today to be joined by Birmingham and Ireland's Louise Quinn. Really looking forward to talking to her, especially just coming off the international break and all the exciting things she's done in the last couple of weeks. The COYGIG Pod is on OTB SPORTS in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Karen, I suppose best thing to do is just to dive straight in. For anyone who's just stumbled across us and maybe is just learning a bit about the WSL and Irish women's football, what has the league got to offer?
Well, what it has to offer is a lot of obviously skill and all the rest of it. And we say that about any team that we see on telly. But in terms of the women's game, I think you'd be surprised by the amount of grit and determination you'll see from the teams. Too often we're used to watching our Premiership footballers rolling around the place. You won't see as much of that. But you will see really, really dogged affairs. You're going to see a tight title race this year. In particular, we see Arsenal and Chelsea have gotten up to a fantastic start. And we also have a surprise package of Spurs in the mix as well, which I don't think anyone saw coming, but 4 wins out of 5 has been a phenomenal start from then. So there'll be plenty of ups and downs as the league goes on, but at the moment you just have to admire the start that Arsenal have had. It's been flawless, and I think there's plenty of people across the water and here where Katie McCabe is the first name off their lips when you think about women's football at the moment. And that's not just domestically in Ireland, it's because of the impact she's having in Arsenal and in England at the moment.
Yeah, I think Arsenal fans and Spurs fans will both be happy that their women's teams are performing quite well this season, considering how the men's seasons tends to go. And you mentioned Arsenal there, and I suppose one of the things about Arsenal is they've always been this massive presence in English football. They have like their record FA Cup holders. I think they have 14, next closest team has 8. They were winning all the titles all the way along. And then in the last couple of seasons, you had Chelsea, you had City coming in, spending all this money and kind of overtaking them a little bit. And I know last season, Arsenal did this review into how they were basically running the team, that a lot of players were getting injured when they shouldn't have. And it's really paid off for them this season. I mean, they're unbeaten apart from the 4-1 against Barcelona in the Champions League. Again, probably, well, the best team in Europe considering they won the Champions League last year. But what has it been so far this season about Arsenal that's impressed you? They've a new manager, Jonas Eidevall, come in. I think a lot of people say he's changed a lot, but what in specifically have you been most impressed with?
For me, what I'm most impressed with is their versatility and the way they can use their bench. You've got Manu Ibuchi coming in, you've got Tobin Heath, and then everyone's talking about Katie McCabe's versatility because she's played right side, left back. They play different systems, and centre to that has been Kim Little and some of her performances, and she's back in real fine goal scoring term. He's freed her up. And that's because he's got Leah Williamson in fantastic form. She's not just contributing at the back, she's getting up and scoring headers as well. I've just been really impressed by how he's been able to use his squad. I know people have commented that Chelsea are looking a little bit tired, and obviously they had that Champions League run, they're stacked with internationals, but Arsenal look fresh, and I think that as we go through the season will be how these top teams use their bench, because Arsenal and Chelsea can afford to kind of play with their teams a little bit more than teams lower down the table who don't quite have that strength and depth.
Definitely. And it's something Arsenal have struggled with in the past. And I remember even Arsenal signed US women's international Tobin Heath this summer. Massive signing, great player. And I remember seeing some people saying, like, why bother signing Tobin Heath? We already have all this forward firepower. And I was watching these people going, would you not want Tobin Heath or that option on your bench, Stephen? Because as well, with the age she is, she's like at the farther end of her career. She's probably not going to be playing 90 minutes every week like some of the other players. So to have that option come on, or to have her on for the first half, is such a great chance to pull off your bench. And I think with the way Jonas Eidevall has been using his team, he's much more willing to swap players around. Players aren't playing the same amount of minutes that they were in previous seasons. Well, apart from Katie McCabe, who I think is playing like 90 minutes every week, but generally, yeah, generally they seem to be swapping a lot more and maybe not focusing on the possession as much. They seem to be playing off the ball and making them comfortable with doing that. So it'll be interesting to see where they go, especially. And then a few days later, they have the second leg against Barcelona at the Emirates in the Champions League. So some big matches coming up for them.
Yeah, big matches. And of course, they'll have the bit between their teeth for the Barcelona game. They're obviously going to be hurt by that because they do see themselves as the best team in England, and they don't feel like there's a gap between the WSL and the Spanish league. And I think we'd all agree with that the WSL has grown in such a way, and it's attracting players like your Tobin Heaths. And you want those kind of people in the league. You want them in your squad because they've seen it all, they've done it all, they bring experience. I don't think anyone would say, why are Man United, why did we offer Edison Cavani another year contract? Because players like that, they can still run, they can still contribute something, and their game intelligence. When you're training day in, day out with people like that, it helps bring players on. And they're still a relatively young squad. They still have people who still have to learn, and having people like her in and around the squad is only going to help that.
And you alluded to it slightly earlier, but one of the other big storylines of the season so far has been Manchester City. Their injury list, their choices in where they're playing certain players, the positioning. Again, another heavy defeat for them at the weekend. They lost to Chelsea 3-0 in the FA Cup semi-final at home as well, which is somewhere historically that Chelsea have gone and found it very, very difficult to win. Do you think that Gareth Taylor is the right man for the job at this stage? Obviously, they didn't qualify for Champions League either, so they just have the league, and even that's not going particularly well for them.
No, they're at a low ebb. I think it's the worst run of form they've had since they became a professional club, and obviously they were so good for so long, but you do have players who want to play a different style of football who are maybe better suited to the WSL, and like you say, their injury list has been low. I'm not sure if he's the right man for the job. I think with Houghton out, you'd wonder on the pitch, are they lacking leaders? He's moved Jill Scott and tried her in centre back, and do they lose that bite from midfield then? And you've had a bit of indiscipline, players getting sent off, and it's just some of it's bad luck, and some of it is just lacking they just aren't at the same level. You know, it's hard to put your finger on what is happening. Is it fatigue for being so good for so long? Is it just not being adaptable? I think not being adaptable is hurting them. I don't think they have the same options that Arsenal and Chelsea do have. And when you have one or two leaders out of the team like that, it's hard to dig yourself out of that. So the sooner they get those injuries sorted, the better, because like you say, it's something that hurt Arsenal in previous seasons. They've sorted that out. And that's definitely what they need to start looking at now, because if anyone said to you after 5 games they'd be 9th, just above Reading, Birmingham and Leicester, you wouldn't put them in the bracket with those kind of teams. You just don't expect to see it.
No, absolutely not. And I think it should be said, I think at one point their injury list was literally a starting 11 of some of their best players. You know, the Ellie Roebuck, one of the best goalkeepers in the league in previous seasons, Lucy Bronze, Steph Horton. There's all these players that
huge names, huge names,
yeah,
household names. That's the thing, they're household names that they're missing, and the fact that we know these names shows how good they are as players. I know the league has grown, but these are girls that are synonymous with the English team and with the WSL now, so to have them out is massive. And you hope for those girls as well that they can get back in and they can get up to speed quickly. When you're rushed back too quickly, we can see what happened with Harry Maguire on the men's side of things. So they have to be careful of that, but they really are crying out for a good result at the moment.
Because they do have such talent on that team, especially some of the younger players. You look at the likes of Lauren Hemp, like 3-time Young Player of the Year, Caroline Weir, who can score those absolute screamers that are so entertaining to watch. Yeah. Also, one of the things I think about City, especially coming up to next summer, is I know quite a lot of the players on the team are going to be out of contract soon. So poor results, not making Champions League football, teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, Barcelona, Lyon, even further afield sniffing around could really harm them later on in the season.
So yeah, and something City have to be conscious of, but they do have the resources to ensure that they have a good squad. So it's really important that the club back them, that the club recognize that something is going wrong and that they look at to address it. And if that's in terms of investing more to try and attract more players, even if it's from the American League, then that might be something they need to do in order to keep tabs on the top two.
Yeah, because they saw such success with that last season with Sam Ewis. But I know a lot of Rose Lavelle fans were a bit upset about her not being played or played in the positions that they thought she should be played in. So it'll be interesting to see if the US will let them take any more of their national players.
Yeah, they'll definitely be keen not to let any more go. But I think we will start to see it. I think the WSL is starting to attract more and more players. And obviously the way America works is completely different, where the focus is always on the national team first and foremost. But the game is becoming very, very professional now. Some of these girls are on big contracts and it's going to be hard to compete with that.
And obviously it is early in the season. We're 5 games in, but it is a relatively short season as well compared to other places. Looking at the teams that are competing, do you think it is going to be a shootout between Chelsea and Arsenal for that title? I know we mentioned Spurs are performing quite well, but probably don't have the depth that they might need to go all the way, although they won't have the big competitions like Champions League as well, which can sometimes benefit teams in league runs.
Yeah, I think that it will be Arsenal and Chelsea, because I think that the teams that have traditionally been doing well have had a top in-form striker, and those two teams seem to have 3 top in-form strikers at the moment. So I feel like Spurs and United are obviously improving, and obviously they've gone from second division up, and it's good that they're holding their own, but they'll be looking to compete. They don't have that recognised out and out striker. They're playing Ella Toon kind of in that very trendy false 9 position. So I think that just based on form of strikers and how mean those 2 defenses can be, the likes of Magdalena Eriksson, we were lucky enough to see her live in action in Tallaght Stadium, and God, she gave a display that night. She was so calm. And Leah Williamson, say for Arsenal, they have quality in both areas of the pitch, and I just don't feel like the other teams have that depth throughout the team and the squad to compete with them at this point. But like you say, it's very early days.
Yeah, excited to see how it all unfolds. And I don't suppose we wouldn't be doing our fellow country women any justice if we didn't touch on a few of the international players that are playing over in England. Probably the easiest place to go to with that is Birmingham. Because while they're not playing all that great at the moment, I think they're second from last in the league with 1 draw and 4 losses. Yeah, 1 draw and 4 losses. It's been a difficult time for them, but they do have quite a big Irish contingent, and they have seen quite a lot of change with Scott Booth coming in, and also there's a lot of new players. Do you think this is a settling in period for them, or do you think there are kind of wider issues that need to be addressed over the season?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that Birmingham don't have the resources to compete. When you look at the likes of Everton, they were able to make some big signings, and I think that they'll be a team that as the season goes on, you'll see that they'll click more. Whereas with Birmingham, I don't think they've been able to add the same quality. But it is great for us on from an Irish point of view that we have so many girls gone over there now, and they're training every day in a professional environment. They're going to have it really tough. Themselves and Leicester are going to have it tough, and there's no denying that. But it served Louise Quinn well. We saw some really good performances from her. So from a selfish point of view, the fact that they're having to do a lot of defending, Jamie Finn's up and down that pitch. She was phenomenal in the most recent game, the win over Finland. She was up and down that pitch. So it's reflecting well for us in Ireland. But in terms of Birmingham and how they're going to compete, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting hearing like Vera Powell talk about it the last couple of weeks, obviously with the internationals, that even just from a fitness point of view, that even if the team itself isn't performing massively well in the league. It's just the fact that they are competing at that level and they are competing against those sort of names. I remember it was something Louise Quinn actually talked about when she was over in Italy, and how different the gap was between the league there and the sort of training levels and the competitive levels, and even things like rehab and medical facilities compared to playing in the WSL. So obviously the more players from a national perspective that we can get there, the better. And we seem to have quite a good little track over there. I mean, you look at someone like Katie McCabe and what I know she is like the player for us at the moment, but even that as an example to girls and women looking to play professionally is so great to have.
Yeah, and you've got Louise Quinn and Niamh Fahey, who have had such a long career and they've sustained it so well. So that's something that, while some of the girls have gone over, the likes of Emily Whelan and Eleanor Ryan Doyle, maybe they're not quite starters yet, that they're being blooded and they're getting the experience. They know the levels that they need to get to in order to become mainstays in the WSL, and that experience will stand to them no matter what. We saw Leanne Kiernan, she dropped down to the second division and it's done her the world of good. So it's going to open up more and more doors. And obviously, as a Peamount United player, I'm a bit sickened, but it's one of those things you're happy for the girls because it's a massive opportunity. And Birmingham is a perfect place for them as well, because they're going to have that support network of all of the Irish girls there. And we're going to speak to Lucy Quinn a bit later and we can talk about the Irish contingent there, which I'm looking forward to talking to her about. But it's a great opportunity for them no matter what. They're being exposed to some really, really good quality so early on in their careers.
Yeah, definitely. And it's even just nice to see the interest building here. I think like with people being able to see the WSL much more with the Sky and BBC deals, it's kind of fed down into the Women's National League, and people, because they see the names that are going across and like where players started out. And then obviously we can actually watch the Women's National League on TG Catter and things now. So there's loads. It's all kind of almost coming up to a head at the same time. Maybe it's not even coincidental. It probably is, because they're so much more accessible, and even shows like this hopefully will raise a bit more of the profile. But it has been great to see, and it would be great as well if at the end of the season we did have someone like Katie McCabe lifting a few trophies and getting a World Cup qualification.
If we could choose between one from Ireland, we take the World Cup qualification. Arsenal fans might think differently, but that would certainly be fantastic. And the growth of the women's game, it's been phenomenal over the last few years. I went to see just Shelbourne and DLR's the first televised game here in Ireland, and you'd think maybe that's going to detract from the crowd, but it was actually the biggest crowd I've seen at a Women's National League game this season. So the more exposure there is, I think it's going to benefit the WSL. It'll bring in more gate tickets. It'll help the development. Hopefully that'll all be reinvested and we'll get more and more of the big clubs, the Man United, the cities, and more clubs joining them in terms of their investment and how they use their platform to grow the women's game.
Yeah, I hope that does continue, because I know I've seen in the WSL this season that attendances are slightly lower than they would normally. Now, that could be down to a variety of factors. It could be because they're easily broadcast on TV. It could be because of COVID. It's really hard to judge because of the way things have been, but I do hope that it slowly will encourage like more people to go to the games.
Well, the exposure is relatively new as well, so it'll be interesting to see maybe next year, the year after, how it has impacted. I don't think we'll know until that point, but for us across the water, it's definitely brilliant for us to see our girls and other girls and the levels that they're at in the WSL.
Definitely, and I look forward to discussing it with you over the next couple of weeks. If anyone listening has any opinions or suggestions or thoughts on anything that Karen and I have talked about today, or else has any thoughts about what we should be hitting on in future weeks, please do get us on Twitter, tag Off the Ball, and use the hashtag COYGIG.
The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
So now it's time for something I'm very excited for, because it might just get a little bit heated, which is always fun. OTB Emma's Carroll has joined us, and she is going to provide us with our very first team of the week. But today, for a little bit of a spin on things, we're actually going to do a team of the season, just to give everyone a bit of a taste about how the season's been going so far and who the players are that you should be looking out for. How are you, Emma?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. So I suppose shall we just dive straight into it? Run us through your starting 11.
So starting 11, it can be looked at as on the graphic I've kind of got it as a 4-2-3-1, but it probably could be a 4-4-2 really, depending on where you wanted to play the players, because there's so much attack in there really, to be honest. In goal, we have Becky Spencer from Tottenham. I think Spurs are just so far in the beginning of the season doing so much better. They're into her place, so compared to last season, it's just miles and miles ahead of themselves. And I think her goalkeeping has been top quality and leads a lot to where their position is in the table. Left back, left wing back, left forward, right wing, wherever you want her. Katie McCabe has to be in there. Speaks for herself, and I'm sure we'll talk to her later on. Right beside her in centre back, Louise Quinn. She's probably been the standout performer for Birmingham, I reckon, so far this season. I think they're relying a lot on her experience, because if they don't have that, they're really going to struggle, and they're already struggling this season, as we've seen. Alongside her, Arsenal's Leah Williamson. I think she's had a few good seasons, but she's really stepped it up again this season, and she's shown leadership. Those diagonal balls is almost like what Van Dijk done before he got injured for Liverpool, the way she just pings them like 40, 50 yards down the field and picks out a player. Right back, it's in a bit of a similar vein to McCabe. It's a bit off cut. Erin Cuthbert has kind of played a right wing back, right back position for Chelsea this season. Not a position I don't think any of us probably ever would have seen her in or thought she'd be in, but she's kind of stapled that position down at the start of the season, and has shown why Emma Hayes is putting trust in her. Then in the centre, Kim Little, since her retirement, it's almost given her an international retirement, I should say, has given her a new lease of life for Arsenal this season. And alongside her is Ella Toone, I've put from Manchester United. Probably usually will play a little bit forward, but I just wanted to get her into the team because I think she's had a really good start to the season. She's young and she's definitely one to watch. Moving forward the field then, right wing forward, right forward, wherever you want to put her again, Beth Meade. And I think she's just, so far, she's player of the season for me. No matter who she's like, what other players, she's fire, to be honest. Goals, assists, left, right and centre. Then more in the centre of things, I put in Fran Kirby because, again, I think since she's come back from her illness, she's just been top notch. It's kind of the Chelsea tree here. And then on the left side is Pernilla Harder. Again, I think she kind of took a little, she didn't reach the heights that we seen her play for Wolfsburg last season for Chelsea. Obviously, really top quality, and it's not to her standards, but I think she's starting to step up again and show that she's the world-class player that she is. And then right up top, Sam Kerr. You can't have Kirby without Kerr, or Kerr without Kirby, so they go hand in hand together. And that's the starting 11. And I know there's a couple of names missing from there.
To be fair, I don't envy anyone who has to come up with these teams, but I feel like Karen and I are going to have a few things that we want to point out.
Karen,
jump straight in with it.
Well, for me, I'll go straight to the top of the pitch. Basically, we're playing 5 up top at the looks of it. But for me, you can never have a team. It doesn't matter who she is or what she's done or if she's not getting the same amount of goals. Vivian Miedema needs to be on that team. And I know you're going for the Chelsea 3 up top there. But just what she offers, the way she can run the channels, her game intelligence, she's a joy to watch. And I think if you were given coaching 101 on what is a striker, she's right up there with any of the males that we would have. She's a bit Thierry Henry-esque at times. So she'd be the one that that sticks out the most to me anyway.
Yeah, I thought she was the biggest omission.
Yeah.
And I've had her
in and out.
Wrote down and scribbled out in and out about 3 or 4 times in different reiterations of this team. I just thought so far this season, she's excellent, as you said. And she'll definitely be in many teams of the weeks to come. But
it shows the form of the other girls that with 4 goals and 2 assists that she's still not making it. It just kind of shows the firepower that particularly maybe Chelsea are showing and other people on the Arsenal team as well so far, because obviously Arsenal have come up an amazing start to the season. They're on a brilliant streak at the moment, but I think she's key to that. So that's the one I would look to fight over.
I think it is interesting as well with players like Meade, because obviously like Jonas Eidevall has been playing such a different system to what Arsenal, or especially Arsenal fans, are probably used to watching, and women's football fans, that it's been interesting to see her be on the ball that little bit less, but still being that sort of like linchpin in the whole thing. And also with so many players in Arsenal's team, like you said, Karen, performing well, you almost sometimes she drifts out of your mind, and then you're like, wait, Miedema's still in this team, she's still like performing incredibly well. My one would have been, and this may, a few Irish fans may be questioning me on this one, but Louise Quinn as one of the best centre backs in the league. I do agree with what you said in terms of what she's doing with Birmingham this season. Definitely they would be struggling massively without her. But I just think of players like Magda Eriksson and stuff, and like these world-class players that the league have. So I was wondering if you could explain to us a bit more about that choice.
Oh, it could be complete Irish bias, I won't lie to you. And especially after seeing Eriksson in the flesh as well in Tallaght a couple of weeks ago, like her calmness and control is just, it's just amazing to watch, really, to be honest with you. But as I said, probably completely a little bit of Irish bias. She's had a head bandage on for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Anytime I looked at her, she was just blocking and blocking and blocking. Bandages on her head, kept going for the headers. And yes, I think we've seen a lot of Birmingham on the BBC and Sky as well. They seem to be involved in a lot of those TV coverage matches, so she could be really standing out in my mind as well.
Yeah, she's certainly prominent there. I think we could give an honourable mention to, maybe in terms of defensive work, Julie Flaherty and Mackenzie Arnold for West Ham. Their goals concession has been really, really low. They're really dogged, and they're doing really well. They're sixth in the league at the moment. You know, they had struggled and they're a little bit inconsistent, but I think those two have put in some really big performances there. And you look at their goals conceded, I think it's 4. And I think it's only Arsenal and Spurs who are better than them at the moment. So while they might not be quite in team of the season, I think that they deserve a mention at this point, definitely for the work they've put in so far.
One I do want to touch on a little bit, Emma, that I do think deserves an extra applause is Beth Meade, who has probably been in the form of her life, has really taken being let down by the Olympics and just changed her entire outlook on football, changed the way that she wants to be represented in the team. I think she has something like 14 assists, 9 goals in 16 games across all competitions. Like, that's an incredible tally, and we're not that far into the season yet.
And she added to it last night again in the FA Cup. So she's just so consistent now as well.
She's just, I think she said she likes to play angry, and getting dropped has made her angry. And oh my God, if her managers want to make her angry more often, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if they're getting those results, because you think Nikita Paris and Tobin Heath coming in would definitely be putting her under pressure as well. And then she's just stepped up to the plate, and she must be doing it in training as well, for the coach to be actually putting her in the side. And yeah, he has no reason to drop her at the moment, the way she's performing.
I think it's exactly what you said as well. Like, you look at the team that Arsenal have, and maybe it's a sort of thing we would have said about Chelsea in the past, but they have the Tobin Heaths, the Miedemas, the Paris, these massive names. But we're talking about Beth Meade, even players, I know she plays up in defence, but Leah Williamson, who like got the England captaincy, and her saying at the start of the season that she wanted to be known for more than her defending and her passing. And I think she's never scored more than twice in a season, and she's already done that this season. And it's so interesting to see how Jonas Eidevall has kind of taken this Arsenal team and, I don't know, just kind of like leveled every single little piece of them up to a higher standard. How he's like the changes in the team every week. He's not afraid to drop the best players. Whenever would you think you'd be leaving Viviane Miedema out of an FA Cup semi-final? Admittedly, it was Brighton, but even still, like, they held Arsenal for the first 45 minutes. It wasn't the easiest of opponents that they could have faced. So I think it's really interesting, and I enjoy seeing players like Beth Meade come up, especially after the summer she had.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that about his style of play, because when we look at the contrasting fortunes of Man City, who are very possession-based football, and they're struggling to break teams down. Teams are figuring out how to play against them. Arsenal seem to have more versatility because they're willing to go that more direct route. Like you said, Leah Williamson with those split passes, they're incredible. They can also play possession and be patient when they need to, because teams are going to block up against them. But I think they have that strength and depth, and they always have options off the bench now. And I think that's why City are struggling a little bit, and Arsenal are going from strength to strength.
Honourable mention as well, as a Liverpool fan, and I'll out myself as one of those right now. Leanne Kernan, it's championships, so not quite WSL, but she's an Irish player, young, and we can't kind of overlook her form. 6 goals in 4 games for Liverpool. Her goals have kind of come at a time where Liverpool's form have turned as well, because they didn't have the best start of the season, and you're kind of wondering, oh my God, are they actually going to be able to push for that promotion? But they're up to 2nd place now, and a lot of it is to thank for her goals.
Completely. I've been so impressed with her. I've even said it a few times when we've been talking about Ireland games that I would love to see her a bit more involved in the national side, just because no other player, apart from maybe take Katie McCabe out of it, is in the sort of scoring form she is at the moment. So definitely deserves an honourable mention, and I feel like we might be doing a few of those over the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm delighted for Leanne. She had to work her way through such a difficult patch as well with injury and stuff, and being a striker is all about confidence, and she has that now. So hopefully we'll get to see more of that in the green jersey as well, like you say.
Emma, thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you again next week when we will have our team of the week, and it'll be focused on all next weekend's games.
An official team of the week, yeah.
The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Now, I'm very excited to say it is time for our first guest ever on the podcast. Joining us today is Birmingham City and Ireland's Louise Quinn. Welcome on the podcast, Lucy.
No, thank you for having me.
We're delighted to have you here. This is really exciting. I suppose just to get started straight into it, you've obviously just come off international duty. How are you feeling? How are the legs? There were some very high intense games that you guys were involved in.
I am feeling a bit leggy, if I'm honest. I think most of us left our legs in Finland. So yeah, it's going to take a couple of days to maybe recover. But yeah, obviously we came away with 3 points, which is massive, and that helps a lot.
And I suppose after looking back on the camp, it probably is what you would have expected to get from it. It was very successful, especially that Finland game. For you, and there's been a lot of talk as well recently about how this Ireland team has come along. I know you're kind of starting your journey with the squad. For you, what is it that's made this team so different the last couple of camps?
Obviously it's fairly new to me. I've obviously known all about the girls and kept an eye on their progress for years. But I think knowing the players individually and knowing that the standard and the leagues around the world that they're playing in, we obviously knew that there was a fantastic squad there. And just luck would have it that we're on a very good run at the minute in the past 2 or 3 games that we've had. I don't know if that's just relationships and time together and time working with the manager that things have started to click. But yeah, it's also about momentum a lot of the time in football. And we've seemed to have had a really positive game against Australia and have been meeting up with our national team regularly since then and have just carried through that momentum.
Yeah, I think momentum is a great word for what this team is building. And you're going into 2 games now, Slovakia and Georgia, where you'll be expected to kind of win. And I think that there's a real belief that you will win. You yourself, you had to do a lot of selfless running in the last 2 games. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to hopefully getting a few more shots on target in the next game. So I guess my question is, have you thought of a better celebration in case you get a goal? Because I'm not sure about that first one.
I really like
your performances have been great, but I think that's the only area I'd see room for improvement at this point.
I really liked it. I don't know what you mean by that. Obviously there has been a lot of running, but that's just football. But then obviously that's international football, and that's something that you have to do. And I've quite enjoyed it. But scoring a goal was something that I completely did not expect. So I think the celebration was maybe me blacking out. I'm not really sure what happened. I think if someone had said, you would you would have a big part to play on your debut. I wouldn't expect to score, and I think that's what that celebration was about. So yeah, the shock of it, and I'll definitely work on a better one for next time.
And you say there about not expecting to have such a big involvement on your debut, but obviously you did. It was amazing, minus the celebration, which we could revisit at a later stage. But what is it like working with someone like Vera Pauw? Like, was she saying to you before you went into this game, you can have a big impact on this? You've worked so incredible, because you've worked really hard to get into that squad, and just even the paperwork to be involved alone has taken you quite a long time. What was the sort of thing that she was saying to you before you made your debut?
Yeah, to be fair, it was probably a confidence thing that started long before I even joined up with the squad. We were having conversations. Vera and I have been in communication for a couple of years since she was appointed. She would call me regularly and say, you know, where are we at with the process? You're someone that we really want to bring into the squad. You're someone that we feel can really benefit us in certain places that we're missing at the minute. And obviously hearing that from a national team manager is a massive confidence boost. And that's part of the reason why I was working so hard to get my application and paperwork over the line. So then calling me into camp, she was really excited to have me there. She was very open with that, and obviously again that gave me a massive confidence boost, and just provided me with an environment where I felt like I could go and really achieve something and play my best. And so obviously when she put me in the starting lineup is a massive leap of faith on her part. I was just really glad that I could repay her with putting in like a strong performance, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you made a massive impact, and obviously senior international, it's the pinnacle, but you had some international experience. Tell me if I'm wrong reading your Wikipedia page. Top goal scorer at the World University Games, best goalkeeper at the Women's Euro Beach Soccer Cup.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, so the World University Games it's like an Olympic Games for university students, and it was probably the best experience I've had in my life. Just
I would say this is one of the same things for myself. I haven't played in Ireland.
Yeah,
we got absolutely hammered by Great Britain. I'm older than you, but we got hammered by Great Britain. But it was still one of the best experiences, because it is like a mini Olympics. It was
unbelievable, and I'd never experienced anything like that before. We went to the Olympic Village. You're a younger person, you're at university. It was a part of the world that I was never going to get the opportunity to see any other way, in my opinion. You meet students from all over the world with that common goal of sport or football, and it kind of just brings you all together. That was a really amazing experience. Obviously, I was at university in England, so I was representing GB, but we played against Ireland, and a lot of the girls were playing for that team. So we've had chats over dinner in the squad about what an amazing experience that was. Obviously, I was playing for GB, which is not the best thing, but obviously that's just the way it was.
A few more goals and I'll forgive you.
At least you went the right way. You beat Ireland then, so it's fine. You didn't do like a Jack Grealish, Declan Rice sort of deal on us.
Well, it was obviously just where I was at university as well, so it's not really like it was just kind of circumstances, I suppose. But and then the beach soccer thing is something that I get asked about a lot. It was basically just the opportunity for us a few of the girls from Portsmouth to play beach soccer, which was just a great way of keeping fit and traveling the world during the summer. I did play in goal. It's obviously a slightly different sport to 11-a-side grass football. It was good fun, and I really enjoyed that as well. And unfortunately, that was something that I couldn't continue when I went professional with grass football, but was an amazing experience just to go with your friends and again, see different places in the world.
So what you're telling us is that we don't need to start involving you in the Great Ireland goalkeeper debate that's been raging on the last couple of months, that you're going to stick with where you are on the pitch.
I think I would prefer to stick with where I am on the pitch, but if Vera or the girls say, look, we need you to go in goal, I'm not sure all the keepers would be in favour of that. But if it had to be done, then you do anything for the shirt, I guess.
And you've just come back off that international duty, going into Women's Super League. It's been a bit of a tough season so far for Birmingham. What's the atmosphere like around the ground?
Yeah, Obviously, the WSL is a massively competitive league, and it is just growing and growing every single year. And Birmingham this year are a squad that are very new together, very young. There's not many girls that have experienced WSL football or professional football before. There's a new manager. So yeah, it was always going to be a bit of a task. It's a league that's amazing. Anyone can go and get a result against anyone. And I think we still have a positive run that's going to come our way. We are going to get results. We are going to get points. We are going to get goals. It's just that initial stage of gelling and figuring out how we want to play. But the mood in camp is really good. Everybody enjoys being there. Everybody enjoys being together, and it's a fantastic experience for the girls that have never done it before to step out and play against players and teams and stadiums that we have been. So yeah, it has been slightly difficult, but this league is never going to be easy. It doesn't matter, how your squad has been prepared. So no, it is very positive and exciting, and some of the girls are really going to come into their own. They're looking really impressive, and I can't wait to just see them keep developing.
Yeah, and you're off the mark now. You got your first point. Obviously, Louise scored a screamer from 1 yard out to get you off the mark there. And you mentioned obviously there's new girls coming in, some of them being Eleanor Ryan Doyle, Jamie Finn, Emily Whelan. They've all recently joined who wouldn't have that experience. You have been there and you've done it before, so it must have been nice for them to have someone like you in and around the squad. And of course, Louise, you probably have that leadership role in there somewhat.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, Louise is someone that you can watch in training or watch how she carries herself and watch how she commits to every single game. And yeah, you can't not learn something from someone that's achieved so much in their career, obviously with the national team, at club level. She's obviously a natural born leader, and she's our captain, and she's obviously a very, very important person to have around. And yeah, again, with the young girls, they've come in with a whole different host of experiences than I've ever had. I've never played in Ireland, so I can also learn something from them, for example. I would say I like to think that they look up to me as a slightly senior player, but yeah, I'm not sure. We always have a bit of banter and messing around, but yeah, no, I know that they really value the communication we have, just the same that I would take advice or anything from them, really.
And you were talking earlier about momentum with relation to the Irish team, but presumably because there is such a strong Irish contingent in Birmingham, that like when you're on that sort of momentum with the national team, it's a lot easier to go back into the squad with a kind of positive attitude and say, right, well, this is how we're going to attack our next few games going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love the amount of Irish girls that we have, obviously from football side of things, but also just in general. Obviously everyone loves the Irish. They're great girls, and it's really nice to get to know them at club level. And then also, yeah, it was a lot easier for me to transition into that Ireland squad because I already had friends from the team. So yeah, no, it's really good. And obviously we can come back off of camp and I know a lot more about Jamie than I did before, because I've just played on the right side against one of the best teams in the world with Jamie, and we're constantly communicating, for example, or whatever it might be. So it definitely makes that easier. But even for me personally, I've never had to do that before, where I've had to have an international head and then 2 days later I'm back at club. We play a different way with different players. So I'm still really learning from that and really enjoying it. But it definitely makes a difference that there's a group of us, definitely, yeah.
And just because obviously you've come into Birmingham like this is your second spell, you re-signed during the summer, what was it that attracted you back to the club? Especially when I suppose you look at last season with Birmingham, there were a lot of off-field issues and it was quite public and there was players who were unhappy. What was it about the setup now that you said this is a team and a club and that I want to play with and I want to, I suppose, be associated with?
Yeah, obviously my first spell at Birmingham was my first professional contract, my first club. They really took a chance on me, I guess, kind of gave me the opportunity to play at this level. So Birmingham always had a special place in my heart, and I never left on any bad notes at all. I just wanted to go and test myself and put myself in new environments and develop. And I always said to the club that I would never be against coming back. So yeah, when I found out that they were interested in the summer, it was definitely a conversation that I wanted to have. They made me feel valued just as they did before. You know, they really make me feel like they appreciate me as a player and a person, which was really important to me. I was looking for a new challenge in my career, obviously being a bit older now, so being a bit more of a senior player. And I felt like that's what Blues needed. Blues needed players like myself or Louise to come in with a bit more experience and really help them get through this season. Again, with the off the pitch stuff, women's football is growing at such a phenomenal rate all the time that certain clubs, you know, often are playing catch up, and that's not necessarily their fault. That might be facilities wise, that might be funding wise, or squad numbers, whatever it might be. Blues have really showed intent that we understand where the women's team is going. We understand that it is fully professional, and we value it massively as part of our club and in our communities, and that we're going to do everything that we can to support you girls. And that's a message that I received when I spoke about re-signing. And yeah, obviously some clubs are able to do that in a fortnight, and some clubs are going to have to take a little bit longer, but Blues are definitely on that journey, and I felt really positive about that.
Yeah, and we've even seen that with our own international team. Obviously, we had issues in 2017, and it's only now that even some of those are being addressed, and we've seen it come on leaps and bounds with Cadbury's and the like getting on board, which is fantastic. So it's hopefully on an upward ebb, both at international and club level for you. So that's great to hear that they have that vision for you in place.
Yeah, no, they definitely do, and yeah, like you say, it's getting to a point where sponsors are coming on board, and we're getting viewing figures and that are going through the roof, and we're just getting more coverage in general. And yeah, like I said, Birmingham City has always been such a famous women's team. You know, I remember growing up the likes of Kaz Carney and just some of the players that have come through the club. But yeah, a lot's changing very, very quickly, and the club want to move forward with the women's game, and they've always felt that. It just hasn't always been that easy.
Definitely not. And I think especially with the WSL, it tends to be a league that's quite top heavy at times, and it doesn't really have that trickle down effect. But things are changing now that can also help with the process, and it's not just up to clubs. There is things like the broadcast deal that will help make things more accessible. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the fact that you're now, and instead of just playing to a crowd, you actually now have the opportunity to play for the thousands of people that have been tuning in every weekend to these matches. I mean, there's been incredible viewership turnout so far.
Yeah, honestly, it's unbelievable. When you are growing up and you love football and you want to be a footballer, you obviously dream of playing in front of thousands of people. You dream of the TV cameras and scoring in the stadium and Sky Sports. And if I'm honest, I really never thought that I'd see that during my career. I thought it wouldn't happen on the scale that it has for many years. I thought there was always a market there for women's football, especially off of the back of the Women's World Cup. We saw that viewing figures were very popular and everybody appreciated the game a lot more. They saw the girls as athletes just from every country. It really was great exposure for the women's game. But yeah, honestly, I didn't think that I'd ever see the day that I would be a professional footballer where I would be paid to go and do what I love, let alone to, you know, be sat eating lunch and have Sky Sports pop up with your name or your face. Or obviously it's an absolute dream come true. And I'm really grateful of the journey I've had. I've experienced amateur football and semi-professional football, and now obviously professional football with massive exposure. And yeah, it's a career that I'll only get to live once. And yeah, it's been an absolute dream.
It's such a unique thing as well for a lot of people to have gone through that journey from before things were pro and to see where it's gone now, and it's growing exponentially, and it's only going to continue to do that. And the investments are so important for that, particularly for us. We're watching Sky Sports over here, so we're getting to see our girls and what they're doing across the channel, and that's going to help like people playing in Ireland. It's going to increase participation, and hopefully we'll get to see more and more people transition from our Women's National League in Ireland over to England when they are ready. And who knows, it might even trickle down to help us become semi-professional in this country. I think that would be the ultimate goal too. So I think the exposure over there will have a knock-on effect here, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because we've seen the WSL model and what it's done in England in terms of we now have a fully professional league. And yeah, it might be a bit smaller than the men's league at the minute, but obviously we talk about this momentum and the journey that women's football is on. And we've seen now with the championship, the majority, if not all of the clubs, I think now are full-time or professional. And yeah, it's only a matter of time that we start to see that more. It's happening in Scotland, and then we want to see it happening in Ireland. And absolutely, it's great that young girls can watch Jamie and Eleanor and Wheelo come over and think, oh, she's from a little town just down the road from me, and now she can go and travel or stay in Ireland and play football, and it be visible, which is obviously massively important and something that the women's national team have been fighting for long before I was involved. So yeah, it's great to see, and hopefully it just carries on the way it's going.
And to bring it kind of finally back the league in Birmingham, and what can we expect from this team in the coming matches? I know you said that like there's a lot of players have come in, a lot of younger players, new manager. It's been a lot of shifting change. So what are the team targeting in the next couple of games? I think it's like Red and Aston Villa and maybe Chelsea coming up as the next three. What can we expect from the team?
Yeah, so we've got some big games coming up. Obviously, the Aston Villa, the second city derby is huge. It's huge to the players and to the fans. It's just part of football that we really love. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of hard work and a lot of heart and desire from the next few games. We are all new together, but we've had more time, and you can definitely see that we're growing every game that we play. Obviously, off the back of West Ham, that was a big step for us, just to get some belief in some of the girls and some self-confidence in themselves. So I think within the next couple of games especially, we're going to see a lot more of us on the ball and going forward and showing what we can do. I'm watching some of the players in training, and they've just picked up things so quickly, and they're just working so hard, and I'm excited to see them go and get their rewards at some point in the near future.
Yeah, to have taken a point at West Ham was fantastic, and you're looking at Villa and Reading who are below them, so you certainly must have belief going into those games that you can get 1 if not 3 points from them and build the momentum that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's important to obviously come off the back of taking a point of West Ham and say, look, girls, this is a team that were flying in form, and you've proved that we can go out and do it. That was a hearty performance. It wasn't always pretty, and obviously Louise scored with her feet, which I don't think any of us have ever seen before. So yeah, we can take a lot of confidence from that. But obviously, like I said earlier, the league is so competitive. You never know who's going to go and get a result against who. And yeah, the girls should definitely look at the next 2 fixtures and think anything's achievable here if we go out and do our best. And yeah, that's hopefully what we'll take into the game and come away with points, because we definitely deserve them.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lucy. Best of luck with the rest of the season, and of course with the World Cup qualifiers. Karen and I will definitely be watching and willing it on. We all want to be an out
for that celebration.
Yeah, we all want to be.
I will, obviously. I'll get working on that this evening, because you're right. I'll even watch it back. It was just one of those things, but I'll get practicing.
That's it for us this week on the first ever COYGIG podcast on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland's women's national team. Karen and I will be back next Tuesday, ready to bring you all the biggest news and talking points from across the weekend's games. And of course, Emma will be back with us to give us her first team of the week. As we mentioned earlier, we will also be joined by Ireland and Arsenal's Katie McCabe to chat all things about her career. Thank you for joining us on episode 1 of the COYGIG Pod, and thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next week.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.